Welcome back to A Look in the Mirror. I am Ben here with Maggie and Brian to talk about episode number 5 of season 7 of Black Mirror, Eulogy. And definitely, I think a pretty unique episode of Black Mirror. It's not common that we really get an episode that's basically entirely one character, or I guess one and a half characters, because we do get kind of the AI of Carol's daughter. But yeah, this was very much a we are going to do a character study on one guy, and the technology is going to kind of just somewhat guide us in doing so.
They couldn't have chosen a better guy. I mean, Paul Giamatti killed it this episode, though. He definitely, for being such a one character focus episode, he carried. He did an excellent job with it. I really like Eulogy. I think Eulogy is one of my favorites of this season. Different in the way that it was kind of bleak, but it really was very thoughtful. Lots more so than I think than some of the previous episodes we've kind of explored. And then I thought it was unique. And like I said, Paul did great.
Yeah, I liked that this episode wasn't really about the technology itself, more using it as a vehicle to revisit, these memories and stories. And it was more about the stuff that people tell themselves, or the narratives people construct to make themselves feel better, which I think everyone's very guilty of doing in their own lives. And yeah, Paul Giamatti was amazing. I would it's okay, we need someone good enough to carry a whole episode by himself. And two, it's probably can't really afford that many other people for an episode. We have Paul Giamatti. So that well.
No, I mean, I thought he did good. I think that the character of Philip is really interesting, because I think a lot of Black Mirror characters are are usually either ontologically evil, or kind of bland. But I think that Philip was just kind of a normal guy that had a lot of personality fault, and was obviously not a good partner in his 20s, which I mean, I feel like a lot of people are not good partners in their 20s. It's not he's not a bad person. He's just very, to this point where this one bad outcome to this relationship kind of mentally broke him in a certain way. And, he never really did the legwork himself to realize that he was at fault for a large majority of the relationship going badly, until it kind of got forced onto him.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Philip as a character, I agree, as 20-year-olds, it's not our best shining moments in life, but Philip let his perception of his life with her shape the rest of his life, right? And he was, through Eulogy, through this program, he was forced to come to terms to what was actually happening around him. And he did kind of accept it at the end, but I'm sorry, I don't really have too much sympathy for him. A lot of people make mistakes in relationships early on. Should that shape your entire life? I mean, this man has a lot of things that he needs to work through himself. And honestly, this whole thought of he never would have done this work on his own. The only reason he did this was because it was kind of forced upon him. I think it's it says a lot. No offense, men. I think it says a lot of, how men are in society. And, the fact that it was the daughter, it was a woman who had to guide him through this to kind of actually see what was going on. I think it's a very fair commentary of what some men have don't do. So I have no sympathy for Philip near the end. at all, to be honest. He fucked up. He messed up his life. He let little things bother him, and it sucks that he's going through it now, but sorry, dude. That's what happens.
Yeah, I think he definitely was a very poor communicator, as I think a lot of people are generally when they're younger. And she was too, just leaving a note without like actually talking. That was not great, but yeah, it's really like sad that it defined him in this way. And this technology seems like it would be a great therapeutic thing to help people not 40 years later come to terms with certain moments in their life, rather than just like it did letting it define his life, this one relationship that he had when he was like 25 maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's like it is very interesting because like this is like the almost stereotypical like one that got away, right? But like I think like a lot of people, in order to like as a coping I think almost as a coping mechanism for him, he like obviously in the time as well, but like retroactively reappropriated all of the blame for the relationship ending the way it did onto her, and like kind of refused to do any kind of internal like to like look in the mirror at all, not to a little bit, no pun intended, but yeah, so it was very weird for I guess me to like really empathize super hard with him. I agree to a degree with Maggie, because like normally if you have a relationship end this way, you will kind of take a step back and do like an inventory of your life and be like, hey, what went wrong, right? Was and not just be like, oh, it was all her fault, like she left me like for no reason, and like she did all these horrible things, and like she was so inconsiderate. And to be like, oh, hey, I also cheated on her, like, like I feel like that's kind of like if you're
Burying the a little bit,
a little bit of an important detail to like completely ignore in your your recap of the relationship, and trying to use that to maybe make some adjustments in your life going forward. But yeah, maybe it's like it's almost like the meme of like, men will spend 40 years brooding and then talk to an AI instead of go to therapy,
Yeah, I mean, I just found it so shocking near the beginning of the episode, and I think obviously the point, but shocking how, everything he owned to this woman, he destroyed. And even like, when we started exploring through the pictures, there was no blame on himself, right? He's blatantly seeing how he's having, that potential relationship with that other woman, his drinking problem, his miscommunication with Carol, and
selfish behavior.
Yeah, the selfish behavior, and there's just no awareness, no self-reflection that it's him. And I think even at like one point, the guide is like, well, how do you think she feels? Just like blatantly is like, I think it was in the band moment when she was relegated to like the background, and he had no problem with that. He was like, oh, we were happy together. I don't know why she wanted to continue. And it was like, and she was like, are you sure? Like maybe I don't know. It was just like shocking how so unaware he was. But then when you realize it's because he never took the time to do it, the second he thought Carol cheated on him, he destroyed everything about her in his life. Yeah, it was shocking. It was sad. But I don't have sympathy for him. He did this upon himself. I'm glad he finally put in the work, but That's rough, dude.
Yeah, no, this is, hopefully it'll be a lesson to anyone watching. Like, confront these things now rather than in 40 years.
And I agree. I think there's definitely miscommunication between Carol and him too, like leaving a note on Carol's behalf. But in her defense, he was violent. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if I ever necessarily want to go up and talk to a man about what was potentially going on with his violent, drunk behavior. In her position, that was probably her safest option. I don't even know if she had gone to him then and said, "Hey, I'm pregnant. I cheated on you because you cheated on me," and things like that. I don't think the young Philip would have taken it well. An older Philip, we're kind of getting this idea of like, he's like, I would have worked with her. We could have gone through, we could have raised this child together. I don't think young Philip would have done that either. I think it would have been a more violent or sad outcome.
Yeah. I mean, it's very hard to know because, back that we talked in multiple episodes in the season about unreliable narrators. I think in this situation, Philip is the ultimate unreliable narrator.
Yes.
Because we're getting the entire story through his perspective, because we're seeing all of these past events take place in the Eulogy technology through these photos that he's describing and filling in with his own warped memories of things. And even in these warped memories where he's doing it through his own perspective, he still looks like a jackass. So if anything, he's probably, he is probably worse when you're looking at it through more a neutral perspective.
That's valid. It's his self-conscious is no, dude, you really are the jackass. Yeah, you're right.
It's very it's very interesting. I feel like what Brian said was interesting. This could be used as a therapeutic device instead of a commercial device for dead people. But of course, yeah.
I am interested though, considering what this technology is. Okay, so they set up this technology with the daughter of the deceased woman to basically guide people to bring up memories of Carol. Now, it works in Philip's case. They had a very strong history, and by extension, it helped Philip. Who are they sending this to? Because, I don't know, are they sending it to Carol's coworkers? Is it weird for them to just randomly get her daughter to be let's think memories of my dead mom? Obviously the guide, she doesn't outright say that until the very end, and maybe she only revealed that information to Philip. But I do think this is kind of a strange thing, for funerals in general. It would be better as a therapy thing. As a funeral thing, I don't want to get my dead friend's daughter to help me think about her. I don't know. It's also kind of a little bit of a strange technology. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, well, presumably the other people would know her daughter. Where he didn't, and he also skipped the intro package about it. So, but I think the idea would be okay, this is the memory. We're just gonna take the memory, and when all those people were in the pews, with the little thing on their head, they were just viewing the memories from the perspective of whoever gave them. I don't think he actually ended up giving any because no, maybe watching her play the cello, right? That would have been a nice memory to share with everybody. But yeah, I guess that's probably, I wish we had seen a little bit of that from other people's perspectives and other memories, but that's what I interpreted it to be.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think the reason, I think that it worked with us not seeing it because ultimately I think the episode was again about just a character study of Philip, and not really it wasn't really about the technology or about the end goal. We see obviously at the end him actually going to London to the funeral, but that was I think more just a closure moment for him as opposed to us actually getting some kind of story device. But yeah, I agree. I think like the whole point was just like, it's basically like what we have now at funerals, where they do like a slideshow of pictures of people, but the high tech version of that, where you're just experiencing the actual, memories of those pictures having been taken. It's like VR 3D version of of like a picture slideshow at a funeral. So I don't think it's like that crazy. Like as far as like, is this a completely like immoral, crazy technology that we probably should not ever exist? Like, in common people, like that should never exist. Or if it should exist, it should not be monetized. I think this is fine. I think this is like a reasonable technology that can probably exist, and it wouldn't be like that, immoral.
I think it's interesting that you say that too, because the criticisms I've seen from people online, I think most people do love Eulogy, but I think there is a small group of people who said this doesn't feel like a Black Mirror episode because it is not so tech forward. Mm-hmm. And I think like when you compare this to other episodes that are not as tech forward, I think this is a good Black Mirror episode. Black Mirror, obviously has this like tech mindset, but it is, as we discussed earlier, more so about the people and how this affects people and how this can affect change in people, or maybe for people to not change and things like that. And this, as a character-driven forward thing, and Paul's character, Philip's character going through, what he does through the use of the technology, I think this could go down as like a top Black Mirror episode, despite its lack of technology.
I mean, I think it has more like technology in it than like there are other Black Mirror episodes that have less technology. Like even the first ever episode of Black Mirror has like very little like crazy technology in it.
Right. That's what people like to say, like, oh, it's not because it has no tech. I was like, right. Do you think of the very first episode? Agree.
I mean, I think like this is very good in terms of examining like the fallibility of memory and like, subjective versus objective kind of reality, and how perspective can kind of warp your view of the past. Like, I think like those are really interesting concepts that this technology kind of plays with, because it's trying to get like a relatively objective snapshot of reality for the deceased person in order to like show that to like the funeral goers. But like all of these like memories that it grabs are going to be tainted to a certain degree with like a subjective view of that memory. So it's I think it's like, especially as we move into a potential future where like you have access to this kind of a technology, I think that's an interesting like philosophical question to address, like kind of just beyond the actual like story elements that were addressed in the episode.
True. Right. I think this season in general, I think that has been a lot of the focus on a lot of these episodes in this season is people's perspectives and how that can be unreliable. It can change. It can, cause conflict or confusion and things like that. And I think arguably every episode has had some sort of reference to that, which is why this season so far has been great, in my opinion.
Yeah, very character-driven season.
Yes.
Which I liked.
Me too.
Yeah, and like the one big thing would be like people getting too into their own memories and only living in the past. But I mean, his character already does that without this. Yeah. So like, it's kind of just something that people already do.
Yeah. Ironically, the technology almost gave him some closure.
Yeah.
From like a situation that he was hanging on to.
It could have been very easily an episode where like he wanted at the end, it's a idea of like he just wants to live in the past, and he just, I could very easily see this becoming an episode where at the end he like uploads himself into his pictures and just tries to relive his time with Carol through these pictures. But instead they went for this more like closure aspect of it. Arguably maybe a more uplifting ending of a season. Again, I think it's not very uplifting for him with his regret that he's not going to live with the entire life if he wasn't such a prick. Sorry, can I say that? Oops.
Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate that resistance to try to make it more into like the tech side of things and more of like his closure.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope that, like, you know, at least like going to the funeral, like reading the letter, like obviously, like I think reading the letter is going to be, it's probably going to take a lot of the pain from the ending of the relationship that he's held over the years and make it, at least in the short term, worse, because it's going to be like very obviously his fault that like that, you know, he didn't have a happy ending at the, you know, in his youth. But you know, I would hope at the very least that like after going to the funeral and seeing the daughter playing the cello and like all of that, like he'd be able to finally kind of have at least a little bit of closure and move forward in his life, and you know, have whatever is left of his life and live with more peace of mind.
Yeah. I will say too, also the other thing that, you know, is interesting to me is Carol's character. You know, I don't think she's without her faults, you know. I do think Philip is a bit more of the problem in the episode, but we have to remember, you know, from the very first picture, it's established that Carol is flighty. I mean, she was engaged when she met Philip and left whoever that engaged man was for Philip. And even subtly throughout some of the pictures, we do get sense of Carol's, you know, non-committedness, you know, her wanting to move to London after being with this man for so many years. That's, you know, that shows a sign for a woman who is not very committed. I think they both brought faults into the relationship. You know, to have Carol just be like a saint is wrong.
Yeah.
She has her faults too. Again, I'm a bit more pro Carol than Philip, but she has her faults too. And I think that was really interesting to have that portrayed as well in like in the pictures and the subtlety of that. And, you know, him realizing that there was a little bit more to it than many layers more to what was on the surface.
Yeah, especially when we find out like pretty early on in the episode, or when Philip finds out that she was engaged when they met. And like that was not a thing that he knew, because like she had seemingly downplayed to him, but like, oh, it was just like kind of like a casual relationship maybe. So yeah, 100%. Like neither of them were perfect partners to the other, or like perfect people. But I think the story that we're basically being told is like, you know, Philip puts the vast majority, if not all, of the blame for the failure of the relationship onto Carol until this program happens, and he has to kind of address the fact that he has a huge part to play as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and I really think like the biggest message here is like you can't let like any one thing in your life, whether it's a relationship, a job opportunity, like you can't let it define you to the point where it's like stopping you from living a fulfilling life, which it feels like it did for him.
Yeah.
And that's really sad to me. That's like tragic more than anything else. Is just like, damn, dude, you just like let this define you. It's very Ted Mosby.
Yes.
Except Ted Mosby had that dog in him a little bit more. He would have been back out there on the prowl more than Philip was, it seems. But yeah, just don't let this stuff define you. Like relationships come and go, job opportunities, life instances come and go. Like you can't live in the past, but you can't let the past dictate your future either, you know.
And you cannot expect that a random eulogy kit is going to come into your mail and help you process your trauma. Okay, you got to do the work yourself.
Well, that's the thing, right?
Easily now.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? You can't let a bad situation in your past define you, but you do have to do a little bit of like retrospective analysis on the things that went wrong with that bad situation, so that you can adjust yourself for future situations.
Right. Like if you go to therapy, you have to be honest about
Yeah.
your part in things.
Yeah.
I feel like some people are not, and that's not the point of going to therapy. You know, you
Mhm.
let people gas you up and be like, I'm not the problem, but like
Mhm.
at a certain point, you got to accept that you probably were at least half of the problem.
That's
if
so
not more.
Maria coded from Bed Noir. Like, here we go.
Yeah.
I'm not the problem.
Yeah, right.
I did not start those rumors.
Mhm.
Oh man.
Can we also say that this episode, while being like an emotionally beautiful episode, the episode itself was beautiful. The way they did the picture designs, you know, especially in the areas where it is not, you know, it's being filled in by the program to complete the pictures. I thought this was a beautiful episode to watch.
No, the cinematography was very cool. Like
Yeah.
very, very good. Like I was kind of like worried as the like kind of early scenes were playing out of like how is this going to like look or like feel, like is this gonna, am I gonna like buy into this? But like no, it was like really well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Very
think they did a
thoughtful.
great job capturing what like trying to recall a distant memory is like, where it's like there are things that really stand out, and then there are things that are just like blurry in the background there, where it's like, I think that person was there. I think, you know, that picture was on the wall, or I can't really remember what that room looked like, but I remember the people in the room and that stuff. I thought that was very neat.
Yeah.
It seemed like they went above and beyond to try to capture the feeling of that.
Absolutely. And, you know, the subtlety of, you know, insisting on playing music or smells and stuff like that to help trigger those memories, which is a true thing. We all know this. It was really well done, very thoughtful. Beautiful episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you guys, I guess, thoughts on, like, did you see, I guess, like the twist coming that the guide was Carol's daughter? Because for me, like, as the episode was going on, I was like, is this supposed to be Carol? And like, he's just forgotten her face
I remember. Yeah.
so completely that like he doesn't even recognize her when she's standing right next to him. But I think you know, in hindsight, it made a lot of sense that it was her daughter.
I didn't see the twists coming, but I liked it.
I didn't think it was Carol per se, but I did kind of figure out the twist at the moment when the guide asked Phillips, you know, how do you think she was feeling? I think like the fact that the guy was so emotionally invested for him to understand, to hear, to learn of what they were seeing and interpreting, what Philip was seeing and interpreting in the picture. I had a sense that the guy was someone who was close to Carol. And I assumed daughter just because of the age of her and what she looked like. So that's who I kind of figured out the twist, but I did not. I was like, oh, it's Philip's daughter. I did think it was Philip's daughter.
No, it's someone named Brian. Fucking conspiracy theorists who died of COVID. Presumably one of those anti-mask, anti-vax conspiracy people.
Right.
QAnon guy, you know.
Yeah, I was like, damn, had to be Brian.
Giving a bad name to Brian's all around, yeah.
Yeah, for real.
You know, some band guy from London, you know, Brits. No, that's not true.
Yeah, at least he was talented, I guess.
He was very talented.
But troubled.
Was he like a xylophonist though?
Yeah, I don't assume that's hard. I don't know. Oh man. Yeah. I mean, you guys have much else for this one?
No, I really liked it. I agree. I think it was probably my second or third favorite episode of the season.
Yeah, definitely one of my top favorites, not just of this season, but of Black Mirror overall.
Yeah.
It was an episode that after I finished it, I didn't want to just straight away go and jump into the next episode. I wanted to like sit and think about it and process it. And I think that's like an example of a good storytelling, good episode. Top favorite of Black Mirror episodes of all time.
Agreed. Yeah, and Paul Giamatti, what a guy. Maybe he'll get an Emmy nomination or win from this.
Yeah, I feel like there hasn't been that many Black Mirror Emmys, has there?
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's go IMDb and
let's just do some quick Googling, you know.
I'm trying to think of like some of the stand-up performances I've noted from previous seasons.
Yeah.
Like did John Hamm get an Emmy?
San Junipero won an Emmy. USS Callister won an Emmy. Bandersnatch won an Emmy. That's it. Those are the three.
What was the first one?
Hey.
Sorry.
San Junipero, USS Callister, Bandersnatch. Those are the three that won an Emmy.
What were the categories? Does it say?
For San Junipero, it was outstanding television movie and outstanding writing for a limited series movie or dramatic special. For USS Callister, it was the same two, and then also outstanding single camera picture editing and sound editing. For Bandersnatch, it was the same two. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see, them winning more Emmys for this season, especially those.
Yeah.
Whether it's this episode or maybe the next episode we're talking about. We'll see.
For last season, Joan is Awful and Beyond the Sea were the two that were nominated. Beyond the Sea, I think, was probably my favorite episode from last season, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Brought Josh Hartnett back into our hearts and minds after not seeing him for like a decade. And then like watching that episode, I was like, oh yeah, this guy's really good. Really good actor.
Yeah. I know there's not like I feel like there's like a lot of people who don't like when big name actors and actresses are brought into Black Mirror. But I mean, I'm sorry. There's a reason Paul Giamatti is great and was able to carry an entire episode by himself. Could a unknown actor have done it? Maybe. I mean, unfortunately, maybe weren't given the chance. But
I don't mind it at all.
I thought. To be honest, I thought Aaron Paul was the best part of last season in Beyond the Sea. I thought he was like the best actor in that whole season. So I don't really. I'm not looking at it and be like, oh, that's Aaron Paul. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking at it and be like, oh my god, it's an amazing episode of television.
Right. You're true. Yeah. I'm not gonna be dissuaded because it's like, oh, I know that one.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I feel like Aaron Paul's kind of an underrated actor in terms of just how good he is.
Yeah.
Like obviously Breaking Bad, but the 2 seasons of Westworld he was in, he was really good.
Well, this is when we go back when we do podcasts of all the other episodes. We can really dive into.
Give him his flowers.
Yeah.
Oh man! All right, are y'all ready to move on to the next one?
Yep. Oh yeah.
All right, anything you want to plug or promote, Ben?
No, I mean, just check out The Blindsiders if you watch Survivor. Genius UK is starting up on Wednesday, and then the Devil's Plan season 2 is the week after. Brian and I may or may not cover one or the other or both, depending on timing, depending on if the seasons are good. If I watch the first episode of the Genius UK and it's kind of like mediocre and giving me Genius Netherlands vibe, I'd be like, no, I'm not doing a podcast about this.
So that'll be up to you. You'll be the judge because I haven't seen the original Genius. I don't know.
You've seen the Devil's Plan season 1, right? So the Genius is better in my opinion than the Devil's Plan. So if you've seen the Devil's Plan on Netflix, obviously watch season 2. It should be good, and then go watch the Genius seasons 1 through 4. Probably the best reality TV show of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll say this. Someone who's watched a lot of reality TV, not just like Survivor, Big Brother, but like tons of random ass one-off shows. The Devil's Plan was like reinvigorating to my like reality competition. Like I felt like stuff kind of got into a bit of a lull and I wasn't super high on it. And then I watched Devil's Plan and I was like, oh yeah, this is the feeling I had the first time I watched Survivor, Big Brother, Yep. So highly recommend it and can't wait for season 2. Like counting down the days on the calendar, got it circled. But Maggie, anything you want to plug or promote?
No, just if you're a guy out there who doesn't feel like they need to process and do their own work to process their emotions, let me know. Let me know why you think that.
Go to therapy.
Go to
Yeah,
therapy.
what's the online therapy that sponsors a lot of YouTubers? BetterHelp?
Yeah,
Wasn't there like a scandal of BetterHelp though? I feel like.
Probably.
yeah. Just let
So
me
maybe
know.
that, but
Yeah. Just let me know, and I'll reply with a link to some local therapists in
Yeah.
your area.
No, I think it's good. And yeah, you don't want to be Paul Giamatti's character in 40 years. You really don't.
Yeah.
Other than that, yes, Ben said all of our podcasts. We also have Worth Fighting For, which is a Last of Us podcast. Hopefully, you two will come on some point this season. You know, if you're interested, talk a little bit about The Last of Us. I do that with some more. It's really fun. I've been loving the show so far this season. It's only 2 episodes, but I think it's one of the better shows on TV in terms of like writing and production, and then acting, of course. I also did a video talking about the adaptation, like what they've changed, what's good, what's working, what's not on the main channel for The Last of Us after last week's episode. No spoilers, obviously, but it was a big one. So check that out. And then we can get sports, those fake nerds, and this channel, Better Radio. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.